Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Defiant. The stars looked the same as always through the big window in front of him. Space was quiet today, just like most days. Jake had been doing this job for 5 years now, and he still loved it. "Captain, we have something strange on the long-range scanner," said Lisa Brooks from her station. Lisa was the best tactical officer Jake had ever worked with. She never missed anything important. Jake turned his chair toward her. "What kind?" "Of strange?" Lisa frowned at her screen. "Big ships, sir. Really big. Coming from outside our solar system. They're moving slow, and their energy readings are all wrong." "How many ships?" Jake asked. "I count at least 200, maybe more. They're too far away to get a clear picture." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her control panel. "Wait, Captain. I'm getting more contacts. A lot more." Amy Stone looked up from the communication station. Amy was young but smart, and she could speak 12 different languages. "Captain, I'm picking up some kind of transmission. It's not in any language I know." "Put it on speaker," Jake said. The bridge filled with strange sounds. It was like music mixed with the sound of breaking glass. The noise was sad and desperate, even though none of them could understand it. "Ryan, get down to engineering and check." "Our systems," Jake ordered. Ryan Clark was the ship's engineer, and he knew every bolt and wire on the Defiant. "If these are hostile aliens, I want us ready to fight or run." "Yes, sir," Ryan said, already heading for the elevator. Jake pressed a button on his chair. "All hands, this is the captain. We have unknown alien ships approaching our position. This is not a drill. Battle stations." Red lights began flashing. Throughout the ship, the crew moved quickly to their posts. Jake had trained them well for this moment, even though he hoped it would never come. "Captain," Amy said, "the transmission is getting stronger. I think they're trying to talk to us." "Can you clean it up?" Jake asked. Amy's hands moved over her controls. "I'm trying to run it through the translation computer, but it's going to take time." Lisa looked up from her scanner. "Captain, you need to see this. The alien ships are in bad shape. Really bad. Most of them look like they're barely holding together." Jake walked over to Lisa's station. The screen showed fuzzy images of the alien fleet. Even from this distance, he could see that the ships were damaged. Some had huge holes in their sides. Others seemed to be held together with metal patches and cables. "They don't look like they're here to fight," Jake said. "No, sir. They look like refugees." The elevator doors opened, and Ryan came back onto the bridge. "Captain, all systems are green. We're ready for anything." "Good. Amy, any luck with that translation?" Amy shook her head. "The computer is having trouble with it. The language is completely different from anything we've seen before." Jake thought for a moment. First contact with aliens was supposed to be handled by the diplomats back on Earth. But these ships were here now, and they looked like they needed help. "Open a channel," Jake said. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Captain." Jake took a deep breath. "Unknown alien vessels. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth defense ship Defiant. We have received your transmission, but cannot understand your language. If you are in distress, please respond." They waited. The bridge was quiet, except for the hum of the ship's engines. Then Amy's board lit up with activity. "Captain, I'm getting a response." And Captain, the computer just figured. Part of their language. "Put it through." The speakers crackled, and then they heard a voice. It was clearly not human, with a sound like wind chimes mixed with a human voice. But the words were in English. "Earthship, this is Thurin Ka of the Kulari people. We are refugees. We have been traveling for many months. Our ships are failing. We have 3 million people who need help." Jake looked at his crew. None of them had expected this. Theron Ka, this is Captain Morrison. Can you tell us why you are refugees? There was a long pause. Captain Morrison, we have been cast out from the galaxy. The great powers say we are defective. They say we cannot be part of their civilization because we are different. Every world has turned us away. Earth is our last hope. Lisa whispered to Jake, Captain, I'm reading massive life signs on those ships. If they really have 3 million people ... Jake nodded. This was bigger than anything his ship could handle alone. Theron Ka, we want to help, but I need to contact my government. Can you maintain your current position while we talk to our leaders? Yes, Captain Morrison. We have waited this long. We can wait a little longer. But please, our ships will not last much longer. Many of our people are sick and hungry. Jake felt a knot in his stomach. 3 million aliens, all depending on what Earth decided to do. I understand. We will contact you soon. Jake cut the transmission and turned to Amy. Get me Admiral Phillips on Earth. Priority 1. While Amy worked to establish the connection, Jake stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there in the darkness were 3 million desperate people who had nowhere else to go. The galaxy had rejected them, and now they were asking Earth for help. Captain, Lisa said quietly, what if the other alien powers don't want us to help them? Jake had been thinking the same thing. If the Kalari had been kicked out by everyone else in the galaxy, there might be a good reason. Or there might not be. Maybe the other aliens were just afraid of anyone who was different. Admiral Phillips. On the line, Captain, Amy announced. Jake straightened his uniform and walked to the main screen. Admiral Kate Phillips appeared, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. Captain Morrison, report. Admiral, we have a situation. 3 million alien refugees have just arrived at the edge of our solar system. They claim they've been expelled from the galaxy because they're different. They're asking for sanctuary. Admiral Phillips was quiet for a long moment. 3 million? Yes, ma'am. Their ships are in bad condition. They say they're running out of time. Captain, maintain your position and keep monitoring the situation. I need to brief the President immediately. This decision is way above our pay grade. Understood, Admiral. The transmission ended, and Jake was alone with his thoughts again. Outside, the alien fleet waited in the darkness. 3 million souls. Hoping that Earth would be different from the rest of the galaxy. Jake had joined the Earth Defense Force to protect humanity from threats. But as he looked at the readings from the damaged alien ships, he wondered if maybe their real job was to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The bridge was quiet as they waited for orders from Earth, but Jake could feel that everything was about to change. For Earth, for humanity, and for 3 million aliens who had nowhere else to go. President Dan Cooper stood in the Oval Office, looking out at the gardens. He had been president for 2 years, but he had never faced a decision like this one. 3 million alien refugees were waiting at the edge of the solar system. And now, whole world was watching to see what he would do. Admiral Kate Phillips sat across from his desk with a thick folder of reports. Mr. President, our scientists have been studying the Kalari ships for the past week. They're telling the truth about their condition. Those ships won't last much longer. What about their story? President Cooper asked. Are they really refugees? We've been monitoring galactic communications since they arrived, Admiral Phillips said. The chatter is intense. Every major alien power is talking about the Kalari. None of it is good. President Cooper sat down behind his desk. Tell me what you've learned. Admiral Phillips opened her folder. The Kalari are what we might call crystalline humanoids. They're about 7 feet tall, with bodies that look like they're made of living crystal. They have these glowing patches along their arms and legs. That sounds beautiful, the president said. It is, sir. But it's also their problem. The galactic powers use something called quantum neural technology for everything. Their computers, their ships, their weapons. The Kalari's crystal biology. Can't connect to it. They're completely incompatible. President Cooper frowned. So they're refugees because they can't use the same technology as everyone else? That's what they claim, sir. But our intelligence suggests there's more to it. The galactic powers seem genuinely afraid of the Kalari. We're not sure why yet. The president walked to the window again. What are the other aliens saying about U.S. helping them? Admiral Phillips turned a page in her folder. The Galactic Trade Federation sent us a formal warning yesterday. They said harboring the Kalari would be considered a hostile act. The Hegemonic Council was more direct. They told us to turn the refugees away or face consequences. Consequences? Economic sanctions first, then possibly military action. President Cooper was quiet for a long time. Outside, he could see people. Walking in the park, children playing, families enjoying a normal day. If he made the wrong choice, all of that could change. Mr. President, Admiral Phillips said, there's something else. Captain Morrison has been working with the Kalari for the past few days. He thinks we should hear what they have to say. Bring him in. A few minutes later, Captain Jake Morrison entered the Oval Office. He looked tired but determined. Behind him walked the strangest being President Cooper had ever seen. The alien was tall and thin, with skin that looked like blue crystal. Lights moved under the surface, creating patterns that seemed to shift with the alien's emotions. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music. Mr. President, Captain Morrison said, this is Therenka, spokesperson for the Kalari people. Therenka bowed slightly. President Cooper, I thank you for seeing me. I know my people are asking much of yours. The president gestured to the chairs. Please sit. Tell me your story. Therenka's crystal skin glowed softly as it spoke. We come from a world called Kelanir, far from here. For thousands of years, we lived in peace. We built beautiful cities and studied the stars. We were happy. What changed? President Cooper asked. The galactic powers found us. At first, they welcomed us. They said we could join their great civilization. But when they discovered we could not use their quantum technology, everything changed. Admiral Phillips leaned forward. What do you mean? They said we were defective, broken. They began to study us like we were animals in a laboratory. When we refused to submit to their experiments, they became angry. Therenka's glow dimmed. They took our world's resources. They said we could not own property because we were not real citizens. They forced us to work in their mines and factories, but gave us nothing in return. President Cooper felt his anger rising. That's slavery. Yes, Therenka said. When we protested, they said we were ungrateful. They gave us a choice, submit to their rule completely or leave. So you chose to leave, the president said. 3 million of us loaded everything we could carry onto our ships and left our home forever. We have been traveling for 8 months, looking for a world that would accept us. Every system has turned us away. Captain Morrison spoke up. Mr. President, I've been working with their engineers. They may not be able to use galactic technology, but they have abilities that are incredible. They can manipulate energy in ways we've never seen. Show me, the president said. The Rendashka held up one crystalline hand. Suddenly, the room filled with soft light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The light danced and swirled, creating patterns that were almost hypnotic. This is just the beginning, Therenka said. When we work together with others who think differently, we can create wonders. The light faded, and the room returned to normal. President Cooper stared at the alien with new respect. Mr. President, Admiral Phillips said, if we help them, the galactic powers will not be happy. Let me ask you something, President Cooper said. If we were the ones being cast out, wandering space with nowhere to go, what would we want other people to do? Admiral Phillips smiled. We'd want them to help us, sir. President Cooper stood up. Then that's what we're going to do. He looked at Thurin Ka. We will give your people sanctuary. We'll help you repair your ships and find a place to settle. Thurin Ka's crystal body blazed with light. President Cooper, I do not have words to express our gratitude. Don't thank me yet, the president said. This is going to make us enemies, with some very powerful aliens. Are your people prepared to stand with us if there's trouble? Mr. President, Thurin Ka said, the Kalari do not forget those who show us kindness. If Earth is threatened because of us, we will fight beside you. Captain Morrison nodded. Sir, I've been working with their engineers. Our technologies might be very different, but they complement each other perfectly. Together, we might be able to create things neither of us could build alone. President Cooper walked to his desk and pressed a button. Get me Admiral Phillips' staff. I want to set up a refugee settlement in the asteroid belt. Full support, everything they need. Yes, Mr. President. He turned back to Thurin Ka. Your people will be safe here. Earth protects those who need protection. Over the next few weeks, the asteroid belt became a hive of activity. Human ships worked alongside Kalari vessels to build temporary shelters. The differences between the two species quickly became apparent, but so did their similarities. Captain Morrison watched from the bridge of the Defiant as human engineers worked with Kalari technicians. Ryan Clark, his chief engineer, had become fast friends with a Kalari named Vesra. Together, they were creating new technologies that amazed everyone who saw them. Captain, Lisa Brooks called from her station, we're getting a priority transmission from the Galactic Trade Federation. On screen, an alien face appeared on the main viewer. It looked like a giant insect with multiple eyes and clicking mandibles. When it spoke, its voice was cold and threatening. Human ship, I am Ambassador Zexkith of the Hegemonic Council. Your species has made a grave error by harboring the defective ones. You have 30 days to expel them from your system, or face the consequences. Captain Morrison stood up straight. Ambassador, the Kalari are under Earth's protection. We will not abandon them. Then you will share their fate, the alien said. A galaxy has no place for those who cannot adapt to proper civilization. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Captain, Amy Stone said quietly, I'm picking up a lot of chatter on the galactic networks. It sounds like they're really angry. Captain Morrison looked out at the asteroid belt, where human and Kalari ships worked side by side. Let them be angry. We're doing the right thing. But deep down, he knew that anger from the galactic powers would soon turn into something much more dangerous. Earth had chosen to stand with the outcasts, and now they would all face the consequences together. Admiral Kate Phillips stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, staring at the huge display screen that showed the solar system. Red dots marked the positions of her ships, while blue dots showed the Kalari vessels. In 3 weeks, this peaceful scene would probably become a battlefield. Admiral, said Colonel Jim Taylor, her chief of staff, the latest intelligence reports are in. It's not good news. Admiral Phillips turned away from the screen. How bad? The Galactic Coalition has assembled over 2,000 ships. 12 different species have joined together to remove the Kalari from our system. Colonel Taylor handed her a datapad. They're calling it Operation Clean Sweep. Admiral Phillips looked at the numbers. Earth had exactly 215 ships, counting everything from battleships to patrol boats. The math was simple and terrifying. "What about the Kalari ships?" she asked. "Most of them are transports, not warships. Maybe 50 of their vessels have any weapons at all, and those are light defensive systems." Admiral Phillips rubbed her temples. She had been a military officer for 30 years, and she had never faced odds like these. "Ma'am," Colonel Taylor said, "President Cooper is asking if we should reconsider. Maybe we could negotiate some kind of compromise." "What kind of compromise?" "The galactic powers might accept the Kalari if they agreed to some kind of supervision. Basically, they would become servants to the Galactic Council." Admiral Phillips looked back at the display screen. In the asteroid belt, she could see the lights of the new Kalari settlements. Families were living there now. Children were playing in the low-gravity gardens that human and Kalari engineers had built together. "Colonel, send a message to President Cooper. Tell him Earth doesn't negotiate away people's freedom." Colonel Taylor smiled. "Yes, ma'am. Now, get me Captain Morrison. If we're going to fight, we need every advantage we can get." An hour later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center with Thurin Ka and several other Kalari leaders. The alien's crystal skin was glowing with patterns that seemed to show distress. "Captain," Admiral Phillips said, "I need to know what the Kalari can bring to this fight." Thurin Ka spoke for its people. "Admiral Phillips, we are not warriors by nature, but we will not let Earth suffer for helping us." "That's not what I meant," Admiral Phillips said gently. "Captain Morrison tells me your people have unique abilities. If we're going to survive this, we need to work together." A new Kalari stepped forward. This one was smaller than Thurin Ka, with darker crystal skin. "I am Vesra, Chief Engineer. I have been working with human Ryan Clark. Together, we have created something new." Ryan Clark entered the command center, carrying a small device. His face was excited, despite the serious situation. "Admiral," Ryan said, "you have to see this. The Kalari can manipulate energy in ways that make our technology much more powerful." He set the device on a table and stepped back. Vesra placed one crystalline hand on it, and suddenly the device began to glow. Energy flowed around it in beautiful patterns. "This is a prototype weapon," Ryan explained. "Alone, it's just a standard laser cannon. But when Vesra channels energy through it, the power increases by over 300%. Admiral Phillips stared at the glowing device. "Can you do this with ship weapons?" "We've been testing it on the Defiant," Captain Morrison said. "The results are incredible. But there's more." Another Kalari moved to the front of the group. This one was tall and thin, with silver crystal skin. "I am Morzen. I study war tactics. My people may not be fighters, but we understand energy and movement in ways that could help." "Show me," Admiral Phillips said. Morzen waved one hand, and suddenly the air above the table filled with glowing shapes. They looked like ships, moving in complex patterns. "Galactic fleets fight in straight lines," Morzen explained. "They use overwhelming force and standard tactics. But energy flows in curves and spirals. If human ships could move like energy moves, they would be very hard to hit." Captain Morrison nodded. "We've been testing these ideas. Our pilots are learning to fly in patterns that seem impossible, but the Kalari can help guide them through energy manipulation." Admiral Phillips felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. "How many ships can you enhance?" "All of them," Vesra said. "But we need time to install the new systems and train the crews." "You have 2 weeks," Admiral Phillips said. "Make it work." The next 2 weeks were the busiest in Earth's history. Every shipyard worked around the clock to install Kalari energy systems. Human engineers learned to work with crystalline technology they barely understood, while Kalari technicians figured out how to integrate their abilities with human machines. Dr. Helen Grant, Earth's top physicist, worked day and night with a Kolari scientist named Corthes. Together, they developed something that could change everything. "Admiral," Dr. Grant said as she entered the command center, "we've created a defensive system that might give us a real chance." She activated a hologram that showed Earth surrounded by a shimmering barrier. "We call it a resonance shield. It doesn't just stop enemy fire, it redirects it back at the attackers." "How?" Admiral Phillips asked. Corthes answered, its musical voice filled with excitement. "Kolari crystal can absorb energy and change its direction. Dr. Grant found a way to create artificial crystals that work the same way, but much larger. We can protect Earth, the Moon, and the major space stations." Dr. Grant continued. "Any attack on these positions will bounce back at the enemy fleet." Admiral Phillips looked at the hologram. It was brilliant, but she wondered if it would be enough. Meanwhile, President Cooper was working the diplomatic channels. He sent secret messages to smaller alien species, the ones who had also felt the heavy hand of galactic authority. The responses were encouraging. Several minor civilizations sent intelligence about the coalition fleet. The Nexari, who were small traders, provided detailed information about galactic ship designs and weaknesses. The Vorthan collective, silicon-based beings, who had also faced discrimination, sent promises of support. On his ship, Captain Morrison went through his own transformation. Thurin Ka had offered to share something that no human had ever experienced, a temporary joining of consciousness that would allow perfect coordination between human and Kolari minds. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" Lisa Brooks asked. "We don't know what it might do to you." Captain Morrison looked out at the fleet of enhanced ships that now filled the space around Earth. Each one glowed with Kolari energy signatures. Each one represented the partnership between two species that had chosen to stand together. "I'm sure," he said, "if we're going to win this, we need to fight as one people, not two." The process was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. For a moment, his consciousness touched Thurin Ka's, and he saw the universe through alien eyes. Energy was everywhere, flowing and dancing in patterns of incredible beauty. He understood, for just an instant, how the Kolari saw reality. When it was over, Jake felt different. Not changed, but expanded. He could sense the energy flows around the ship, could feel the harmony between human technology and Kolari enhancement. "How do you feel, Captain?" Amy Stone asked. "Like we might actually have a chance," Jake replied. Admiral Phillips watched from Earth as her enhanced fleet took positions throughout the solar system. The ships moved in the flowing patterns that Morzen had taught them, no longer rigid formations, but dynamic, living arrangements that shifted like schools of fish. "Admiral," Colonel Taylor said, "long-range sensors are picking up the Coalition fleet. They'll be here in 48 hours. Admiral Phillips nodded. Around her, the command center buzzed with activity as humans and Kolari worked side by side, preparing for the battle that would decide the fate of both species. "Send a message to all ships," she ordered. "Earth stands strong. We fight not just for ourselves, but for the idea that differences make us stronger, not weaker. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when free people stand together." The message went out across the solar system, reaching every human ship and every Kolari vessel. In the asteroid belt, families looked up at the stars, knowing that their defenders were ready. The Coalition fleet was coming with overwhelming force, and now absolute certainty of victory. But they were about to discover that the galaxy's unwanted had found something worth fighting for, and allies willing to fight beside them. War was coming to the solar system, but Earth would not face it alone. The Coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter, like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Admiral Kexvorth of the Zephyrian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the tactical display with satisfaction. 2,000. Ships from 12 different species, all united in their desire to remove the defective Kaleri from the galaxy once and for all. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting the human fleet. They appear to be ... glowing." "Admiral." Kexforth's insect-like face showed confusion. "Glowing? Yes, sir. Some kind of energy signature we haven't seen before, but there are only 200 of them. This will be over quickly." On the other side of Jupiter, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the Defiant, feeling the strange new connection he shared with Thurin Ka. The Kalari's consciousness touched his mind, and through it he could sense the energy patterns of the entire solar system. "Captain," Lisa Brooks reported, "Coalition fleet is moving into attack formation. They're splitting into 3 groups, one for Earth, one for the asteroid belt, and one to cut off our escape routes." "They think we're going to run," Jake said, with a grim smile. "Amy, open a channel to Admiral Phillips." "Channel open, Captain." Admiral Phillips appeared on the main screen, her face calm but determined. "All ships, this is Admiral Phillips. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the right of all people to be free. Remember your training, trust your Kaleri partners, and show these bullies what happens when free people stand together." Jake felt Thurin Ka's presence grow stronger in his mind. Around him, the bridge crew moved with unusual coordination, as if they could sense each other's thoughts. "All ships," Jake announced, "initiate resonance patterns. Let's show them something they've never seen before." Throughout the human fleet, Kalari partners placed their crystalline hands on energy focusing. Crystals. Suddenly, every human ship began to glow brighter, and their movements became fluid and graceful, like a dance choreographed by the universe itself. Admiral Kexforth watched his tactical display with growing alarm. The human ships weren't moving, like any fleet he had ever seen. Instead of rigid formations, they flowed like water, weaving between his forces in patterns that seemed impossible. "Open fire on the human fleet," he ordered. Thousands of energy bolts lanced across space, but hitting the human ships was like trying to catch smoke with a net. They flowed around the incoming fire, their Kalari-enhanced movements guided by a Nai, understanding of energy that the Coalition forces couldn't comprehend. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're not hitting anything. They're moving in patterns that don't make sense." Then the human ships began to return fire, and Admiral Kexforth realized that this battle would not go as planned. The energy. Beams from the human vessels were impossibly bright and powerful, punching through Coalition shields like they were made of paper. On the Defiant, Ryan Clark worked frantically at his engineering station, while Vesraya channeled energy through the ship's enhanced systems. "Captain, we're running at 400% normal power output, and the systems are more stable than they've ever been." Captain Morrison could feel the battle flowing around him through his connection with Thurin Ka. He could sense where the enemy ships would be before they got there, could predict their movements like reading music. "Lisa, target the Coalition command ship. Full resonance cannon power." Lisa Brooks, her movements perfectly synchronized with the Kalari tactical specialist Morzen, locked onto the target. Firing. The beam that erupted from the Defiant was beautiful and terrible, a lance of pure energy that crossed space in an N. Instant. It struck the Coalition flagship's shields, and didn't just penetrate them. It turned them inside out, causing the ship's own defensive energy to tear it apart from within. Admiral Kexforth watched in horror as his bridge exploded around him. The last thing he saw was the impossible sight of human and alien working together in perfect harmony. But the Coalition fleet was far from defeated. General Skurix of the Saurian Empire took command and ordered his forces to focus on the asteroid. Belt refugee camps. If we cannot destroy their fleet, we will destroy what they are protecting, he snarled. Lisa Brooks detected the change in enemy strategy immediately. Captain, they're moving to attack the civilian settlements. Jake felt a surge of anger that was shared by every human and Kalari in the fleet. All ships protect the refugees. Everything else is secondary. The battle for the asteroid belt became the most desperate fighting of the war. Human ships threw themselves between the coalition forces and the civilian settlements, while Kalari energy manipulators worked frantically to strengthen defensive shields. Ryan Clark and Viscera performed miracles, channeling energy from damaged ships to keep them fighting long past the point where they should have been destroyed. Weapons that should have been offline blazed with borrowed power, and shields that should have failed held firm through sheer force of will. Amy Stone coordinated with Kalari communications specialists to create a perfect information network. Every human captain knew exactly where they were needed, while every Kalari could sense the flow of battle through their shared consciousness. General Scarix grew increasingly frustrated as his numerically superior force was held back by the impossible coordination of the human-Kalari alliance. His ships fought as individuals, while his enemies moved like a single organism. "Bring up the planet killer," he ordered in desperation. "If we cannot defeat them in battle, we will end this by destroying their world." The massive weapon, a ship the size of a small moon, began charging its main cannon. Its target was Earth itself. Dr. Helen Grant detected the energy buildup from her position on the Lunar Defense Station. Admiral Phillips, they're targeting Earth with a planet-killing weapon. Admiral Phillips felt her heart sink. The resonance shields could deflect normal weapons, but a planet killer was designed to overwhelm any defense through sheer power. "All ships, concentrate fire on the planet killer," she ordered, but she knew it was too late. The weapon was already charging, and it would fire before they could destroy it. Then Corthes, the Kalari scientist, spoke up from the lunar station. "Admiral, Dr. Grant and I have an idea. The resonance shields are designed to redirect energy. If we can synchronize all the planetary defenses..." Dr. Grant's eyes went wide with understanding. "We can turn their own weapon against them, but the timing has to be perfect." "Do it," Admiral Phillips ordered. Dot around Earth, the Moon, and the major space stations. Resonance shield generators began to glow with unprecedented power. Every Kalari in the solar system joined their consciousness to guide the energy flow, while human technicians pushed their equipment far beyond safe limits. The planet killer fired, unleashing enough energy to crack a world in half. The beam struck Earth's resonance shields, and for a moment, it seemed like the planet would be destroyed despite everything. Then the shields did what they were designed to do. The massive energy beam was caught, redirected, and amplified by the resonance crystals. Like light bouncing off a mirror, the planet-killing energy reversed course and struck back at its source. The planet killer vanished in a flash of light that could be seen from Jupiter. The shockwave that followed crippled dozens of coalition ships and sent the rest of the fleet into panic. General Scarix stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "Impossible. No species has ever turned a planet killer back on itself." "General," his communications officer reported, "multiple ships are requesting permission to withdraw. Morale is collapsing across the fleet." Throughout the coalition forces, the same thought was spreading. If the humans and Kalari could turn their most powerful weapon against them, what else might they be capable of? Captain Morrison felt the change in the enemy fleet through his connection with Theron Ka. Fear was replacing confidence. Doubt was replacing certainty. "All ships, press the attack," he ordered. "They're breaking." The human Kalari fleet surged forward with renewed energy. Ships that had been damaged beyond repair somehow found the strength to fight on, powered by Kalari energy manipulation and human determination. The coalition fleet which had arrived with such confidence, began to fall apart. Ships broke formation and fled. Others surrendered rather than face the impossible combination of human tactics and Kalari abilities. General Scarix, his flagship crippled by reflected energy, gave the order that no galactic commander had ever expected to give. All remaining ships retreat. The humans have won. As the battered coalition fleet limped away from the solar system, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiant and looked out at the stars. The battle was over, but he knew the war was just beginning. "Captain," Amy Stone reported, "we're receiving surrender signals from 17 coalition ships. They're requesting permission to join our fleet." Jake looked at the tactical display, where the remaining coalition forces were scattered across the outer solar system. Many were damaged, but some had simply stopped fighting when they saw what the human Kalari alliance could accomplish. "Patch me through to Admiral Phillips," Jake said. Admiral Phillips appeared on screen, her face tired but victorious. "Captain, what's the status of your sector?" "We've won, Admiral. The coalition fleet is retreating, but we have multiple ships asking to defect. It seems some of them are impressed by what they've seen today." ADM. 6 months after the battle for Sol, President Dan Cooper stood before the largest gathering in human history. The great assembly hall that had been built in Earth orbit was filled with representatives from over 40 different species. Some were human, some were Kalari, and many were beings that most people had never seen before. The war had changed everything. Word of Earth's victory had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Species that had been oppressed, overlooked, or cast out by the galactic powers began making their way to the Sol system. They came seeking the same thing that Kalari had found, a chance to be accepted for who they were. "My friends," President Cooper began, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive hall, "6 months ago, we faced a choice. We could have turned away the Kalari refugees to preserve our relationship with the galactic powers. Instead, we chose to stand with those who needed our help." A wave of approval swept through the assembly. In the front rows, Thurinka sat with other Kalari leaders, their crystalline skin glowing with patterns of joy and gratitude. "Today," President Cooper continued, "we are not just humans and Kalari. We are the Free Species Alliance. We are proof that differences make us stronger, not weaker." Captain Jake Morrison watched the speech from the observation deck of the orbital station. Beside him stood Admiral Kate Phillips, both of them still amazed by how much had changed in such a short time. "Admiral," Jake said, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had made a different choice?" Admiral Phillips looked out at the collection of ships that now filled near-Earth space. Human vessels worked alongside Kalari crystal ships, while strange new designs from dozens of other species added to the growing fleet. "I think about it sometimes," she said, "but then I see what we've built here, and I know we made the right choice." The Free Species Alliance had grown beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The Makani, artificial intelligences who had been denied rights by organic species, had arrived 3 months ago with their sleek robot ships. They brought advanced computational abilities that complemented human creativity and Kalari energy manipulation perfectly. The Ethereals, beings made of pure energy, who had been dismissed as ghosts by the galactic powers, had joined the Alliance. 2 months later, their ability to exist in multiple dimensions at once made them incredible scouts and spies. Most recently, the symbiotic collective had sought sanctuary. They were a species that existed as partnerships between different life forms, something the galactic powers found disturbing and unnatural. But humans and Kalari understood the power of cooperation between different beings. Ryan Clark had become the head of the Alliance's new technology division, working with engineers and scientists from dozens of species. His latest project was something that would have been impossible for any single civilization to create. Captain Morrison, Ryan's voice came over the communication system. You need to see this. Jake made his way to the engineering section, where Ryan was working with Visra, the Kalari engineer, plus representatives from 6 other species. In the center of the lab was a ship unlike anything Jake had ever seen. What is it? Jake asked. The future, Ryan said with excitement. We call it the Unity class. It uses human engineering, Kalari energy systems, Mechani computer networks, ethereal dimensional technology, and symbiotic biological components all working together. Vesra's crystal skin pulsed with patterns of pride. No single species could build this ship. It requires the cooperation of many different ways of thinking. Jake walked around the sleek vessel, marveling at how the different technologies had been woven together. What can it do? Everything, said a new voice. Jake turned to see Dr. Helen Grant approaching with Cor Thess, the Kalari scientist, and several other researchers. Dr. Grant? Captain, this ship can travel faster than anything the galactic powers have. It can phase through solid matter using ethereal technology. Its shields can absorb any energy weapon and redirect it back at attackers. And its bio-neural network can adapt to any situation in real time. Jake felt a familiar thrill, the same feeling he had experienced when he first saw the Kalari fleet arriving as refugees. How many can we build? We're already working on plans for 100 of them, Ryan said. Each one will be crewed by mixed teams from all our alliance species. Back in the assembly hall, President Cooper was reaching the climax of his speech. The galactic powers told us that the Kalari were defective because they were different. They said there was no place in their civilization for those who could not conform. He paused, looking out at the incredible diversity of beings gathered. Before him, they were wrong. Today, we are stronger than they are because we embrace what makes each of us unique. Amy Stone, now the Alliance's chief communications officer, had been monitoring galactic communications networks. The reports she was receiving showed that the old order was crumbling. President Cooper, she said during a break in the proceedings, I'm getting reports from across the galaxy. Minor species everywhere are rising up against their oppressors. The Galactic Trade Federation is losing control of dozens of systems. President Cooper nodded. Freedom is contagious. Once people see that there's an alternative to oppression, they start demanding it for themselves. The hegemonic council had tried to organize another military expedition against Earth, but they couldn't find enough species willing to fight. Too many of their former allies were dealing with rebellions and independence movements inspired by the Free Species Alliance. 3 weeks later, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the first Unity-class ship, appropriately named the Harmony. His crew included humans, Kalari, Mechani, ethereals, and symbiotic beings, all working together with an efficiency that amazed him daily. Captain, reported Lisa Brooks from the tactical station, we're receiving a distress signal from the Galactic Federation border. It's from a species called the Aquatic Collective. They're being attacked by Federation forces for refusing to surrender their ocean worlds. Jake didn't hesitate. Set course for their location, maximum speed. The Harmony leaped into hyperspace, using its revolutionary new drive system. What would have taken a conventional ship weeks, they covered in hours. When they arrived, they found a one-sided battle in progress. Federation ships were bombarding peaceful underwater cities, while the aquatic beings tried desperately to defend their homes with inadequate weapons. This is Captain Morrison of the Free Species Alliance ship Harmony, Jake announced on an open channel. Federation forces, you will cease your attack immediately. The Federation commander's response was predictably arrogant. Human vessel, you have no authority here. These waters belong to the Federation. Not anymore, Jake said quietly. Then, louder, all Alliance ships, engage Federation forces. Protect the civilians. What followed wasn't really a battle. The Unity-class ship's advanced capabilities, combined with the coordinated tactics that the Alliance had perfected, made short work of the Federation fleet. Most of the enemy ships fled after the first exchange of fire. The Aquatic Collective, saved from destruction, became the newest members of the Free Species Alliance. As the months passed, similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The Alliance fleet, now numbering in the thousands, appeared wherever oppressed peoples called for help. Each victory brought new members to the Alliance, and each new member brought unique abilities that made the whole stronger. Admiral Phillips, now commanding the largest fleet in galactic history, often reflected on how much had changed since that day when the Kalari first appeared as desperate refugees. Admiral, her aide Colonel Taylor reported, were receiving a transmission from the old Galactic Council. They want to negotiate. Admiral Phillips smiled. Tell them they can meet with President Cooper on Earth, as equals this time, not as our superiors. The final scene of the Great Transformation came a year after the battle for Sol Captain. Morrison stood in the same observation lounge where he had first watched the damaged Kalari ships limp into the solar system. Now, the space around Earth was filled with thousands of ships from hundreds of different species. Children from dozens of worlds played together in the low-gravity recreational areas. Scientists and engineers who thought in completely different ways worked side by side to push the boundaries of what was possible. Amy Stone approached him with a communication pad. Captain, we're receiving another distress call. This time from the far rim of the galaxy. A species called the Crystal Singers. They're being hunted by some kind of ancient automated defense system. Jake looked out at the bustling activity around Earth. Once, humanity had been alone in the universe, wondering if anyone else was out there. Now they were part of something larger than any single species could have imagined. Amy, send a message to the Crystal Singers. Tell them help is on the way. And prepare the Harmony for departure. Yes, Captain. Where shall I tell them we're heading? Jake smiled as he thought about the unknown dangers and new allies they would find at the galaxy's edge. Tell them we're heading toward hope. That's what we do now. As the Harmony prepared to depart on another rescue mission, Earth continued its transformation into something unprecedented in galactic history, a beacon of hope for anyone who believed that differences should be celebrated, not feared. The galaxy would never be the same, and